It's a Monday edition of Locked On Grizzlies, and while it certainly could have been a better weekend for Memphis, a little too close for comfort at times, the Grizzlies did pick up two big wins in Dallas and in New Orleans. A win is a win. Should we be comfortable with this? I know one thing. We should be respectful and putting respect on the names of Desmond Bane and Morant. We're going to talk about all that, plus preview Phoenix, Memphis tonight. Let's lock in here on Locked On Grizzlies.
You are Locked On Grizzlies, your daily Memphis Grizzlies podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to another episode of Locked On Grizzlies. It is I, Joe Mullinax, one of your hosts, joined by my tremendous co-host, Damichael Cole of the Commercial Appeal there in Memphis, Tennessee, award-winning Memphis Grizzlies beat writer for that publication. I am a contributor over at Grizzlead, and I also take the lead over at our free daily newsletter that you can subscribe to. If you're not already subscribed, go to lockedondaily.com and subscribe right now. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. We're free and available wherever you get podcasts as proud members of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team each and every single day. Like, comment, rate, review, subscribe on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, YouTube. Literally anywhere you get a podcast, make Damichael and myself part of your NBA and Memphis Grizzlies content consumption each and every time that an episode and a newsletter drops. Damichael, so good to see you. Very excited to see you in the flesh here in just about 4 days' time. For those of you that don't know, I'll be heading to Memphis this coming weekend. Going to be covering both the Cavs and the Heat games, Tony Allen's jersey retirement for the podcast. We're going to have extra episodes. We're going to have a Saturday episode of the show and a Sunday episode of the show in honor of me being there in the flesh in Memphis. Still figuring out how that's going to look. Damichael and I will physically be together for at least part of one of those, if not both shows. So make sure you're sticking with us. We will have a meetup at some point as well. Again, I'm partially working. Damichael is fully working. So we have to make sure it makes sense for Damichael most importantly, but we'll definitely do something. Be on the lookout for all that. Follow us on X. We'll have all sorts of details in the episodes this week as well. Damichael, some details for our listeners and viewers. Maybe they were enjoying the first kind of nice weather spring for a lot of the country, especially there in Memphis, I'm guessing. The weather maybe a little rainy, but
it's not too bad over here.
Yeah, so it's getting warmer. Maybe you were doing some yard work. Maybe you're going out and hanging out with friends. Maybe you didn't catch the Grizzlies games. Damichael and I are going to get you caught up. To be honest with you, it wasn't pretty for large chunks of both the Dallas and the New Orleans games. But the part that was beautiful to see was Desmond Bane and Morant being the guys that they're paid to be, superstar caliber players. Helping pick the team up in both games. Bane having a tremendous performance against the Pelicans in particular. A really solid showing for both guys. With Jaren Jackson Jr. out, they both had to carry more of the burden to make these games wins. And again, wasn't the prettiest victories, or they weren't the prettiest victories. We'll talk more about that. But wins are wins at this point as Memphis tries to hold serve in the Western Conference, and they were able to pick up two big dubs because of their two big guards.
Yeah, to go big picture real quick, and then I'll circle back. But I feel like this could be one of those. I mean, we'll see how it plays out over the course of time. But there is an opportunity right now for this situation without Jaren Jackson Jr. Being in the lineup to kind of work its way into a blessing in disguise type of situation. And what I mean by that, because you're looking at the Grizzlies defense at time, and you're looking at, their end of shot clock offense at times. And you're like, Michael, what you're talking about? But look at the aggressiveness that we've seen from Desmond Bane, for example. This is easily the most aggressive he's been over the course of this season that we've seen in his last, 3 to 4 games here, especially in these last 2 wins. He's getting to it. I mean, he's getting downhill in transition. It's not even just scoring. It's the passing. It's the rebounding. It's the assist. It's just an all-around, my team needs me to be a star. I can't be some casual player who takes 4 shots in the first half and then tries to take more in the second half and the game can't come to me. I got to go to the game. And that's kind of the mentality that I'm getting from Desmond Bane right now. And then with Morant, it's more the same as well. Ja said, after that win on Friday, he said, me and Desmond Bane have kind of had some talks, right? And they understand. They understand that they are the two that, look, there's no Jaren Jackson Jr. right now that you can just throw the ball to when Ja's struggling or when Dez's shots off or whatever the case may be. They got to get it done if they want the Grizzlies to get it done. And as we saw against a struggling Pelicans team, a team that was without CJ McCollum, a team that was without Zion Williamson, a team that was without, DeJounte Murray, the list goes on, Herb Jones. Like, they're missing a lot of really good players over there, the Pelicans are. But with all that being said, the Grizzlies only won by 3 points, and you needed Ja Morant and Desmond Bane to combine for 62 for that to happen. So as the young people like to say, Joe, they understood the assignment. Ja Morant and Desmond Bane understood the assignment. And I'll pass it over to you. I got another thing to say about Ja Morant too, but I want to kind of give you the chance to take the floor because this is what you want to see from Ja Morant and Desmond Bane. Even when Jaren Jackson Jr. gets back, if you can kind of mix the two, right? That's why that goes back to what I was saying about it possibly being a blessing in disguise, because you got to find a way to blend it, particularly with Des Bane, but with Ja as well.
For me, the game was more about Ja against Dallas because the Grizzlies somehow covered the spread in that game. I think the spread was -10, Memphis against Dallas, and the Mavericks were in the lead for a chunk of that contest. And yet Ja in particular kind of willed them to a double-digit victory against, again, a very broken Dallas team. Like, you could argue no franchise in the history of NBA basketball is as broken as the Dallas Mavericks right now. And I want to stress, it's so bad that I'm not being sarcastic or taunting at all. Like, I legitimately feel bad for Dallas Mavericks fans. It's terrible. You don't want to see any fan base go through what they're going through. Yeah. Now they want to lose for obvious reasons, but I think that the biggest thing for the Grizzlies is having a guy like a Desmond Bane. Desmond Bane was the leading rebounder for the Grizzlies against the Mavericks. 16 rebounds, Damichael.
Big guard.
16 rebounds. 8 assists led the Grizzlies against the Pelicans on Sunday night. So you had a shooting guard lead your team in rebounding on Friday night, and then 2 days later lead your team in assists. It's not an accident, Damichael, that the team is competing better, even against, I understand it's not as good of competition.
Right.
The turnovers are down. We shouldn't be surprised. When your best players are able to play without turning the ball over 8 or 9 times, you're going to be in games. And that's exactly what the Grizzlies have been able to pull off these last couple of contests.
Yeah, and Dez is just, the urgency is up for him. And it's, like you talk about how good Desmond Bane is, but a lot of times he's one of those really good basketball players that just lets the game to come to him, right? I'll take, if the way that I'm guarded dictates it, I'm going to take 20 shots this game and I'll take 12 the next game. But there are no 12 shots a game for him right now. They need 20 from him because it's Ja, it's Dez. It's a heavy dose of those guys without Jaren Jackson Jr. and even without Santi Aldama, who you could argue is the team's next best offensive weapon. Him being out as well, that's a big part of it with that calf injury. But getting back to Ja, you mentioned the Dallas game, Joe. I'm going to focus on the Pelicans game, and I don't want to overstate it here because I want to be real clear with my words. That game from Ja against the Pelicans, that's the type of game you're going to need from him in the playoffs.
The mid-range jumper was cooking.
Joe, we've been doing this for a while together. You are already picking up.
Simpatico.
We're
on the same page.
That's the type of game that you're going to need from him in the playoffs. Put that game on repeat. Watch it over and over. Watch how he got to the spots, and try to find that balance. Because when you're playing, the Lakers, when you're playing, the Nuggets, when you're playing those top-tier elite Western Conference teams, you're not just going to be able to say, down said HUD and run a fullback dive, to the rim every single play. Like, it just doesn't work like that. You're going to have to incorporate other levels of your game, and dare I say 3 levels of basketball, and we saw that, from Ja. And the three-pointer, it's make or miss for him at this point. Like, he's going to make some, he's going to miss some. He was 3 of 9 in this game, and he made some really good ones, timely ones as well. But it was the mid-range shot that was really, really important. And he took a couple fadeaways. He was pacing himself to get to the right spots. It wasn't rushed. You could tell that it was part of the plan for him. And that's been my thing. Like, if you go back a few games ago, I was disappointed in a game where Ja was rising up looking like he would take a mid-range shot, and then he passed it out to the corner and where he clearly had looks. And it's like, man, it's in his head, right? Like it's in his head at that point. But what you saw in this game was a carefree approach. My team needs me. I'm going to get to the midi. It's there for me. I'm going to knock it down. And he did that. So, look, it's a make or miss lead, but that's how the Grizzlies are going to win series. Look at this game. I'm telling you, if you want to talk about the Grizzlies going to the second round, going to the Western Conference Finals, even going further than that, that's the type of performance that you're going to have from Ja. It's not going to be those games where he's scoring 20-plus paint points and he's jumping over everybody. It's going to be that type of game where he shows you I could do it at the mid-range, I could hit a couple threes to keep him honest, and I'm going to get to the cup while doing that.
CD. It was a CD game. Confidence and discipline. And those are two things that have been lacking in Ja Morant's game consistently throughout this season. And you could argue for the last couple of years. This weekend, if you are hopeful that Ja can be that guy that the Grizzlies need him to be, this is exhibit A and B of exactly what Memphis needs. And with a splash of the old Ja in there too. He tried a dunk against the Pelicans that if he had hit it, it would have been the dunk of the century, potentially. At least dunk of the year.
It was up there with Jakob Poeltl, the same spot he took off from. It was
phenomenal.
Trey Murphy, you dodged the bullet, boy. You dodged one right there.
Yes, Trey Murphy, the one that got away, had a great game for the Pelicans. Let Damichael and I know. Hit us up on X. Let us know in the comments how you're feeling about Ja and Dez. You know, once upon a time, people made fun of me for saying that Ja and Dez were the best backcourt in the NBA. They pointed out Kyrie and they pointed out Luka. I'm going to do my best to not take a victory lap because it's not entirely fair. The reason that Ja and Dez are still a pairing and Luka and Kyrie aren't, but Ja and Dez looking pretty good after this weekend. When we come back here on Locked On Grizzlies, wins look good no matter what, right? But they certainly were messy in some spots. We're going to talk about how concerned we should be going into tonight's game that Memphis won games against broken teams that are probably a little too close for comfort. Stick around. Today's episode of Locked On Grizzlies is brought to you by DoorDash. NBA fans, get ready. They swoosh, you save. Thanks to Dash Pass, every time a player drops 50 or more points in a game, you score a huge deal the next day. It's simple. When any player scores 50 or more in a game during the 2024-2025 NBA regular season, Dash Pass members get 50% off an order up to $10 off the next day from noon to midnight. After an epic 50-point performance, you can celebrate by ordering wings, pizza, or burgers from your favorite spot delivered straight to your door. Or if you're planning to catch the next game, you can order your to-go snacks and meals at a discount and get ready for more high-scoring action. Sign up for Dash Pass and be ready to save. When any player scores 50 or more in a game, Dash Pass members get 50% off an order the next day, up to $10 off. Just use the promo code NBA50 from noon to midnight after a 50-point game on eligible orders at participating merchants. Remember, you have to be a Dash Pass account member. Terms apply, and it's live from noon to midnight the day after the game. Again, exclusive to Dash Pass members. Visit DoorDash to learn more. That's a pretty good deal. All right, Damichael, I've been known to be a bit of a Debbie Downer. I tend to rain on parades every once in a while. Okay. And I'm going to do my best not to do that because I was pretty negative last week. I was pretty angry. People in the YouTube comments let me know, a little bit frowny-faced. They won, right? They won. Yeah. The Grizzlies won. We should be, if not happy with that.
Look, this is the first time they've won 2 games in a row for like a month.
Right.
Like it was early February. So, yeah, that is something to kind of celebrate.
At some point, you have to be okay with the win and just move on. Mm-hmm. But we mentioned how broken the Dallas Mavericks are. The New Orleans Pelicans, you talked about earlier in the show, being down at least 4 rotation players, 4 starters, right? Mm-hmm. And the Pelicans were up in the second half by a considerable amount, double digits. Yeah. The Grizzlies, I think Pete Pranica, I wish I had the exact stat. I know Pranica said it, the play-by-play voice for the Grizzlies television broadcast. The Grizzlies lead the league in double-digit comeback wins.
Yeah.
And
I believe it's 15 of them.
There you go. Thank you. And again, kudos to Pete for saying that on the broadcast. I laugh. Does that concern you? Right? Because on one hand, they're able to – one of the biggest criticisms from me of Taylor Jenkins is in-game adjustments, right?
Yeah.
Being able to win when you're down double digits would suggest that that's not as big of a problem as I lead on to. But every time you hear a player talk about it, it's we got to lock in. They prioritize locking in defensively. They almost make it sound like it's an effort and attitude and attention to detail kind of thing, more than it is any schematic adjustment. Going into the third game in 4 nights here, right? A big game tonight against Phoenix that we'll preview later on in the show.
Yeah.
How concerned are you the way that Memphis won these 2 games over the weekend and a lot of games this season so far?
Oh, well, yeah, that's definitely a little concerning because even if you go back to the early parts of the season, these were blowouts. Like, you remember early on in the season, the Grizzlies were good morning, good afternoon, good night, teams. Like, it was 20, 30-point wins, blowing teams off because of the defense, in addition to the way that the offense playing. And we've seen it kind of be, a struggle there. Defense will be playing well, offense will be struggling. Offense playing well, now their defense is struggling, and they're in a shootout type of game. So you've seen that kind of play out at times. But getting back to your point about, the players, pointing out the fact that, we keep having these lulls and whatnot. Like, that is so perplexing to me. Because we've seen it in the second quarter a few times. Like, why specifically the second quarter? Of course, I have my reason. I'm just speaking out loud here. I think the rotations play. I mean, that's got to be what it is, right? When you mix and match the rotations in the second quarter, and then boom, those 35, 40-point quarters. And in this case, the Pelicans scored 37. We've seen the Pacers, recently have a big scoring quarter. I think the Suns had one as well. Some other teams, like, it's kind of been a consistent theme for the most part. And the players have noticed, Taylor Jenkins has noticed, they've talked about urgency, right? Getting better on the defensive end. We saw it in the second half, a lot against the Pelicans, right? But in that second quarter, it was, it was easy pickings, for the Pelicans. Hey, where you want to score it? Okay, we want to score here. We want to get a 3. We want to get a layup. Here you go. Like, it just seemed that simple, for them. But I think the concern is, to me, when that consistently happens, I don't think it's as simple as mental. Like, it's happening too much, because clearly it's on your mind at this point. Like, you're all right, second quarter, let's lock in, let's bring more effort. So that leads me to believe that it's a combination of a few other things, and a couple of those things being some schematical things, some adjustments that need to be made. When you talk about scheme, and then just talent-wise, like, the point of attack defense for the Grizzlies overall just isn't great right now. And look, I don't want to keep rehashing this, but I'm probably going to say it a couple more times. It's part of the reason why you could talk about how underwhelming Marcus Smart was as an offensive player. But look, with Vince Williams coming off of a major injury, and you having Jalen Wells, who you truly believe in, especially long term, like, there's just not enough there from the point of attack standpoint. Like Jalen Wells is going to be that. He's shown the signs of that already against some of the best scorers in the league. Vince Williams, literally, talked to him probably a week ago at this point, where he says he's about 80%. I said, when are we going to know if you're 100% back to Vince Williams Jr.? He said, when I dunk. Joe, have you seen a Vince Williams dunk yet?
No dunks. Zero dunks.
So take that for what it will. He and if you use the eye test, right? You use the eye test, you're watching with your own eyes. Vince Williams laterally is not the same player yet. That's the main difference. Like, you're seeing a few blow-bys on Vince Williams, where last season it wasn't happening. So, that's going to correct itself over time. But it is somewhat concerning, because when the game's on the line, those are the guys, Jalen Wells, Vince Williams, unless you're throwing Desmond Bane, on that fire, and then you take away from his offensive, the offensive fire burst that we're getting from him right now. So it is somewhat concerning, because it's more so the defense for me, which is weird, because anytime we talk about the Grizzlies and, late game, close games, we're always talking about, the offense, right? The half court efficiency and things like that. And that's still something that, isn't just great, but it's the defense for me, where it's like, and that's kind of what Josh said after the game too. Like, they want to put 4 quarters together really soon of great defense.
Vince Williams Jr. and Jalen Wells are the key to this team making a run. They are the X factor for the reason that you just outlined. Mm-hmm. They need to be able to defend at the point of attack against Luka Doncic, against Jamal Murray, against Thompson, and all these other great players from Houston and all these other spots that Memphis might run into in the first round. They have to be able to stay in front of these guys, and right now they can't. Right, and Vince Williams Jr. and Jalen Wells combined to shoot, I believe it was 6 for 24 from the field. Ja and Dez were phenomenal against the Pelicans.
They're carrying right now, man. They're carrying.
Scottie Pippen Jr. did some good things. Credit to him. I've been hard on Scottie in the past. He had a good game. Turnovers were down again. It's funny how that works. But if it weren't for Ja and Dez, who played 37 and 38 minutes respectively, it would have been a really long night for Memphis. Zach Edey grabbed 12 rebounds in only 23 minutes of play. I'd like to see those minutes go up a little bit. But outside of that, slim pickings. Gigi really struggling offensively. Clark was 1 for 4. You're being happy about Jay Huff being 3 for 7, 2 for 6 from 3. If you're depending on Jay Huff, you're in a tough spot, and that's something to keep an eye on, to say the least. Let Damichael and I know. Hit us up in the comments. Hit us up on X. Are you worried about the way they're winning these games, or are you just glad they're winning after the 4-game losing skid? I think that's a fair take to have. But again, if you want to talk about this team getting out of the first round, it's okay to have a little bit loftier expectations than just winning games.
For sure.
When we come back here on Locked On Grizzlies, we'll close out this episode previewing tonight's contest with the Phoenix Suns. Stick around. Today's episode of Locked On Grizzlies is brought to you by FanDuel. March Madness is here, baby, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories, and even who's cutting down the nets. I have my eye on a few underdogs this year, and FanDuel makes it easy to back them with spreads, totals, and game props. The app itself is simple to use, and when I win, I get paid by FanDuel instantly, no waiting around. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com and get in on the college hoops action all tournament long. FanDuel.com, give them a shout out today. All right, Damichael, Grizzlies Suns. It's going to be another game where you're watching the injury report. We mentioned Vince Williams Jr. a moment ago. I don't think he's played a back-to-back yet, coming back from injury. So it'll be interesting to see maybe Santi in or Kennard in and Williams Jr. out. You might have better insights into that than me, of course. I would imagine Ja and Dez and those guys will be out on the floor competing as best they can. But Phoenix played against the very broken Dallas Mavericks on Sunday afternoon. Both teams flying into Memphis for this game, one of those rare back-to-backs. The Grizzlies an early favorite in the contest, but not by much, about 4 or 5 points they're favored by early on. What are some things you're looking for in this Monday night game, Grizzlies Suns? Back at home, but again, Memphis just had a 1-4 homestand, so that's not necessarily the best news.
Yeah, this one starts with availability, right? Like who are the Grizzlies going to have on the floor? Who's going to be on the floor, for the Suns on the second level back-to-back, traveling back-to-back for them as well. Look, we need to learn more about the Santi Aldama situation. We mentioned it on here, like when you see calf, you don't just brush that off. And it was, a little bit eye-opening that he played a game and then boom, right back out for the next game. So we'll see if that was just, this was the first leg of the back-to-back. Let's set up that one, get them ready for the second leg, or if there's more there. So the injury report will come out, this afternoon sometime, and we'll learn more, on that side of things. But I think Santi's availability is something to watch in this game as well. Another big piece, and we talk about it every time the Grizzlies play the Suns, but it's just going to be a different dynamic in this one. This is the first time they're not going to have Jaren Jackson Jr. in this matchup, and he has been the difference maker to a large degree. If you want to talk about the most recent win when the Grizzlies, I think it was 151-148 in overtime. Jaren Jackson Jr. fouled out of that game with like 4 minutes left and still shot 11 of 13 from the field. I'm saying these numbers off the top of my head, so but I think they're close to accurate. They're probably accurate. But he was like 11 to 13 from the field. They couldn't stop him. I do remember them that's just not being able to hold a candle to him. And Ja woke up late in that game, right? Remember, Ja was struggling throughout the course of that game against the Suns. And then he finally said, I'm going to put my head down. I'm going to get downhill. And this is one of those teams that worked against. Like we talked about against the Pelicans, how it was great to see Ja really incorporate all 3 levels. You want to see him continue to do that. But look, I wouldn't be mad at Ja if he says, man, the Suns don't have a lick of rim protection. I'm going to the rim 20 times and I'm taking 20 shots. Like if that's how he plays it against Phoenix, unless they, make some type of defensive adjustment that we have not seen up to this point, where he has to adjust, then I think that would be fine. So look, Ja Morant showed in that last game against the Suns, he can get downhill, attack the defense from the standpoint of they don't have a lot of rim protection. they have a lot of offensive firepower. And when you're missing Jaren, that's where it gets scary, because we saw what Kevin Durant and Devin Booker did, in that last game, and Devin Booker fouled out of that one as well. And you talk about the fact they might have Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, and Bradley Beal. We'll see what the injury report says. Bradley Beal, you never know. But we'll
never know.
We'll see what the injury report says, and it goes all the way back to what me and you were talking about in the last segment, that point of attack defense. You got a couple guys right now. Really, Jalen Wells is the one guy where I feel like is at that level where you say, put him on him and let's roll. Vince will get there, but he's not quite there yet to what we saw last season. So I think this game will be a little bit tougher, even though last game ended up being really tough. But I think going into all those games against the Suns, we're like, oh, yeah, they're going to win. Jaren's just going to bulldoze them, and, they have no answer for him. There's no Jaren in this one. And Ja has to continue to be aggressive. Desmond Bane, we know he's going to be aggressive as well. And when I say Ja be aggressive, get downhill in this game. And look, if they stop him from scoring downhill, then do what you did against the Pelicans.
This is a game, friendly reminder, the last time these two teams got together, the Phoenix Suns had 5 guys score 21 or more points.
Yeah, that might not happen again.
And they lost. Kevin Durant had 26, Bol had 23, Bradley Beal had 24, Devin Booker had 28, and Grayson Allen, old friend Grayson Allen, had 21. And yet the Suns lost. This is a Phoenix team. Availability is going to be a big part of it. It's important to acknowledge Jaren had 28 points on 13 shots. That was a game that was kind of a reminder of just how good Jaren Jackson Jr. is. You're going to need a good Jalen Wells game. Jalen did not play as well against New Orleans. Usually you see role players doing better at home. That's kind of a tried and true NBA urban myth that holds some validity. I think you'll see Wells shoot a little bit better than he did against the Pelicans. Ja had 29 in that game on 25 shots. He was 1 for 12 from beyond the arc, 14 free throws. It's unlikely he shoots that poorly again, 7 of 25. I do think that it's going to be an opportunity for Ja to have a really big game. But you hit the nail on the head when it comes to Santi Aldama. Santi was the X factor offensively. 6 for 9 from the field, 5 made threes, 5 assists.
Because Jaren was in foul trouble.
6 rebounds. Jaren didn't play as much. Santi was out there. If Santi is available, I think Memphis wins this game. If Santi is not available and Jaren is out, I think all bets are off, and this could be a game that Phoenix comes in and steals.
Yeah, and it's going to be a good test for the reasons that we keep talking about this defense, right? And so this is the perfect test because you can kind of test out what type of, I guess, progress the Grizzlies have made on the defensive end. Like you look at the last 2 games, they look better defensively, but at the same time, if you're smart, you're saying, well, look who they're playing against. So at the same time, you want to see them do it against Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, Bradley Beal, Tyus, Grayson Allen, like a bunch of talented offensive players on that team, but that's also a poor defense. So it's a good chance to kind of see what type of progression, if any, has this defense really made. If you look at the last 2 games, it looks like, to take a word out of Taylor Jenkins' book, they're trending, in a positive direction here. But I think this Suns game will be a good indicator of, okay, yeah, the defense is starting to trend back up, at least from an effort standpoint, or those last 2 games were fool's gold. Like it's really a struggle right now. So the Suns are going to be that test for that.
It's another homestand, right? Starting another 4-game stretch here at home. You've got the Suns tonight, then the Jazz, I believe, on Wednesday. And then, of course, what I like to call the Mullinax home and home.
The local game against the Jazz,
You got the Cavaliers on Friday, and then you've got Saturday against the Heat, TA retirement night. I'll be there in Memphis for both of those games, hanging out with my good buddy, Damichael Cole. I've already promised him he doesn't have to babysit me. He can go about his business, do what he needs to do. But if I do kind of sneak in and sit next to him at some things, I'll try not to get too close and make it weird. Damichael, you are going to have our show tomorrow solo. You're going to be checking out all things Grizzlies Suns. And, you kind of talked about wanting to see a little bit more consistency from the defense. I have a feeling you'll be leading off with that on tomorrow's show, good or bad.
Oh, for sure. Good or bad. Yeah. This is going to be a really good test. And I thought, there were stretches. Like, I think that last possession of regular season, not regular season, of regulation against the Suns in that last game, Desmond Bane was the one that guarded Kevin Durant. on fadeaway. I'm really using a lot of like photographic memory from that game right now. But anyways, it was Desmond Bane who guarded the fadeaway in the corner in that one. And it worked out, but I remember seeing some people say, why do we got Desmond Bane guarding Kevin Durant for the game? We got away with one. But Desmond Bane competed on that end. So it'll be good to see kind of who matches up against who, how those matchups work out for the Grizzlies and what we can take from that. I think that'll be a big indicator going forward of what this team can be and will be defensively.
Hit us up on X at Damichael C, at Joe Mullinax. Let us know what you're thinking about Grizzlies Suns. At any time, follow us, ask us questions, things that we can talk about on the show. Maybe you have an idea for where our post-game meetup should be Friday or Saturday night. Probably Friday night. I think I have like a 5 a.m. flight on Sunday morning. So probably a Friday night meetup.
Friday night's way better. First leg
Friday night is the move. There you go. So Damichael and I will be out somewhere on Friday night. Let us know where you think we should go. And we'll finalize those plans by the middle of the week. And we'll start advertising a little bit if you want to come say hello to the dynamic duo in person. I'm excited to be there. It's been a while since I've been in Memphis. It's going to be a blast. Damichael has tomorrow's show solo. Make sure you're liking, commenting, rating, reviewing, subscribing wherever you get podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, YouTube. Make sure you're subscribing to our newsletter, LockedOnDaily.com. Again, it's free. Words from me on the Memphis Grizzlies in your inbox each and every single day. Make sure you are subscribing, LockedOnDaily.com if you are not already. For Damichael, I'm Joe. Stay locked in. Grizzlies, 2 wins in a row. Can they make it 3 against the Phoenix Suns? Whether they win or lose, make sure you're back here tomorrow and getting your Grizzlies fix with Locked On Grizzlies.